The neighborhood of Evergreen Pines looked like paradise on a postcard. Rows of identical stucco homes in approved Tuscan beige, white picket fences gleaming, and every blade of grass cut to the exact HOA-mandated 3 inches. But behind those pristine hedges lurked the real ruler, Karen Whitaker, HOA president for 12 soul-crushing years. She patrolled in her white golf cart like a pastel dictator, clipboard in one hand, measuring tape in the other, ready to slap a $500 fine on anything that dared disrupt the investment in property values. March 22nd, 2011. Cedar Sinai Medical Center, room 314. The smell of antiseptic and beeping machines still haunts me. Dr. Martinez had just delivered the death sentence in that calm, clinical voice, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Tumor metastasized to liver and lungs. 6 months, maybe less. I was 48, an engineer who designed safety systems for oil rigs. Widowed young, living alone in my modest 3-bedroom on Maple Lane. I stared at the ceiling, trying to process it when the first violation notice arrived by certified mail the very next day. My lawn, the one I could no longer mow because chemo was turning my body into a traitor, had grown to 3.2 inches. Eyesore. Visible medical equipment on the porch. Another violation. Trash can left out 3 minutes past the approved window. Triple fine. By the end of week 1, I owed the HO $1,850, and Karen was just getting started. She showed up at my door in her pressed khakis and pearl necklace. That fake sweet smile plastered on like cheap lipstick. Edward, honey, we all feel terrible about your little health situation. Bless your heart. But the covenants are clear. This community is an investment. And right now you're dragging everyone's equity down. The board had a special meeting last night. We simply can't make exceptions. Property values are everyone's future. She handed me the stack of notices like she was delivering flowers. We expect compliance within 72 hours or we'll have to place a lien. For the good of the neighborhood. Of course. I was too weak to argue. I just nodded and shut the door. That night, I sold my truck to pay the first round of fines and the first chemo cycle. 2 weeks later, the board meeting happened. I dragged myself there in a hoodie that hung off my shrinking frame. Karen stood at the podium in her power blazer, voice dripping concern. We all sympathize with Mr. Wilson's challenges. But let's be realistic here. The HOA has limited resources. We can't keep investing community funds and leniency in a resident who may not even be here to maintain standards long-term. Statistically speaking, he's not worth the risk to our property values. The room murmured agreement. Neighbors I'd barbecued with for years suddenly wouldn't meet my eyes. I sat there listening to her calculate my life like it was a bad mortgage. Not one person spoke up. Not the guy whose kid I coached in Little League. Not the woman I helped fix her sprinkler last summer. Karen had them all convinced I was a liability, a worthless investment. I went home that night and stared at the growing pile of fines. $8,400 now, plus the $847,000 medical estimate Dr. Martinez had handed me. I had no family left, no savings left after the first treatments. I should have been broken. But something colder than the cancer settled in my chest. Spite. Pure. Engine turned spite. I made myself a promise right there in the dark. Hooked up to the portable chemo pump. If I somehow beat the 3% odds, I would build something extraordinary. Something that would make Karen Whitaker and every smug neighbor regret the day they decided Edward Wilson wasn't worth keeping around. I'd build an empire they could never touch. And I'd do it from the very bed they thought would bury me. The next 8 months were hell wrapped in HOA paperwork. Chemo rounds that left me vomiting on the floor while Karen's golf cart circled my block like a vulture. Radiation that burned my skin raw while violation notices piled up for unsightly medical waste bags. I sold the retirement account, the watch my late wife gave me, Everything. I paid every fine because the alternative was losing the house I'd paid off for 20 years. But every night, when the pain was worst and the neighbors had turned off their porch lights so they wouldn't have to see the dying guy, I opened my laptop in that hospital-style bed I'd set up at home. I started sketching. Not just any sketches. I designed sensors that could monitor lawn height to the millimeter and auto-mow at night. Paint refresh drones that kept stucco exactly the approved shade. Trash bin robots that rolled themselves out and back on the exact HOA schedule. I called the system Harmony Guard, because what better irony than turning the very rules that were killing me into a billion-dollar solution? 17 patent applications filed from my deathbed. 17 ideas born from pure hatred for Karen Whitaker's clipboard. September 3rd, 2012. Dr. Martinez called me in. Edward, I don't know how to explain this, but your tumors are gone. The experimental immunotherapy had worked. Miracle case. The 3%. I walked out of that office weighing 97 pounds, but feeling like I could lift a house. Karen sent another violation the same week. Failure to maintain holiday lighting schedule. I paid it with the last $50,000 I had left after medical bills. Then I founded Harmony Guard Systems in my garage. First product, the Lawn Sentinel drone that mowed, edged, and reported compliance data straight to the HOA portal so residents never got fined again. City of Hope Cancer Center ordered 50 units for their staff housing. $600,000 in revenue off a $50,000 investment. I stayed right there in Evergreen Pines. I wanted a front row seat when Karen realized what she'd created. By 2015, the company hit its first million. I hired 12 people, opened a real office, filed 43 more patents. Karen's golf cart still cruised past my house. But now my lawn was perfect, robotically perfect. She couldn't touch me. I watched her tighten the noose on everyone else. New rule. American flags could only fly between 8 a.m. and sunset. Violation. Holiday wreaths had to be removed within 48 hours of New Year's. Violation. One widow got fined $2,000 for leaving her husband's old truck in the driveway while she grieved. Karen called it preserving neighborhood aesthetics. I recorded every board meeting on my phone, every condescending speech, every time she said for the good of the community. 2017 brought the breakthrough. FDA approval on the full Harmony Guard platform. AI that handled lawn, paint, trash, even security lighting to exact HOA specs. Hospitals, retirement communities, and entire neighborhoods started buying. Revenue jumped to $15 million. I upgraded my house into the biggest one on the block, the one Karen had always dreamed of owning. Still inside Evergreen Pines, still under her rules. But now my robots made compliance effortless. She hated it. 2019 international expansion. 2021 pandemic-proof contracts with the military for VA housing. 2023, $50 million valuation. I drove a Tesla, employed 147 people, and saved an estimated 43,000 lives through early detection tech we bundled with the compliance system. Every success was fueled by the memory of Karen standing at that podium, calling me a worthless investment. Last month, Forbes wanted the story. The engineer who beat cancer and built an empire from spite. Glossy photos. 5-page spread. My Malibu-style mansion on the cover. The article dropped March 8th. 3 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Edward, it's Karen Whitaker. I saw the Forbes piece. I had no idea you'd survived. Your company, Harmony Guard, it's incredible. Listen, the board is in a bit of a crisis. Lawsuits from residents. My re-election next month, I was hoping we could talk. As neighbors, as community leaders, maybe invest some of that success back into Evergreen Pines. Her voice was all honey again. The same tone she used right before she fined a dying man for grass length. I smiled at the phone. Karen, that sounds interesting. Why don't you come by the house tomorrow at 2? We'll discuss investment opportunities. I hung up and immediately called my old oncologist. Within 24 hours, the rumor mill in LA medical circles was spinning. Edward Wilson's cancer had returned. Aggressive metastasis. Months, not years. I spent the morning setting up the study. Professional camera, ring light, laptop streaming to YouTube. Viewer count climbing before I even went live. I clipped the wireless mic to my shirt and smiled at the lens. Afternoon. Everyone. Edward Wilson here, founder of Harmony Guard Systems. In about 45 minutes, the woman who once called me a worthless investment while I was dying of cancer is walking through that door. She thinks I'm months away from dead, and she needs my money to save her little kingdom. Let's see what she really wants. The doorbell rang at exactly 2. Showtime. Karen stepped into my foyer wearing her best HOA president armor, crisp white blouse, navy blazer with a little gold pin that said community first, and that practice smile that never reached her eyes. She looked around at the 30-foot ceilings, the Italian marble, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific, and I watched the calculation happen behind her Botox. Edward, this is breathtaking. The Forbes article didn't do it justice. You've done so well. We're all so proud of you here in Evergreen Pines. Proud. 13 years of fines totaling over 50 grand while I puked my guts out and she measured my lawn with a tape measure. Proud. I gestured toward the study. Let's talk in here. Private. The camera was positioned so it caught both of us perfectly. She couldn't see the red recording light from her angle. Viewer count already at 12,000 and climbing. She settled into the leather chair across from my desk, crossing her legs like we were old friends. Edward, I'll be honest. The HOA is facing some challenges. Several residents have filed frivolous lawsuits claiming we're too strict. My re-election is next month, and the opposition is using your story, twisting it, really, to paint me as heartless. I was hoping you might consider, well, a partnership. Harmony Guard could sponsor our community events, maybe even install the system neighborhood-wide at cost. It would be a wonderful investment in Evergreen Pines. And of course, I'd make sure any past misunderstandings are wiped from the records. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch. Misunderstandings? Like the time you told the entire board I wasn't worth the community's investment because I might die. Her smile faltered for half a second. Edward, I was young in the role. We all say things we regret when we're trying to protect property values. But look at you now, healthy, successful. That's the power of positive thinking. Healthy. I almost laughed. The rumor I'd planted was working beautifully. My private investigator had already reported she'd spent the morning at her attorney's office discussing estate implications and potential donations from terminally ill residents. I glanced at the laptop screen. 28,000 live viewers. Comments scrolling. She's squirming already. Play the old recordings. Karen kept talking. Voice syrupy. I've always admired your resilience. Remember when I personally waived that one fine after your second round of chemo? That was me fighting for you behind the scenes. I stood up slowly and walked to the bookshelf. I pulled out a thick binder. Every violation notice, every board meeting transcript, every recorded phone call I'd saved for 13 years. I dropped it on the desk with a thud. Karen, let's be realistic here. The way you were with me back then. I opened the binder to the page from the March 2011 board meeting. Her exact words highlighted in yellow. He's not worth the investment in this neighborhood. Her face went the color of old drywall. That was taken out of context. We were protecting everyone's home values, yours included. I turned the laptop toward her so she could see the live feed. 42,000 viewers now. The chat was exploding. She's the same monster. Karen got caught. Everyone, I said to the camera, meet Karen Whitaker, the woman who fined a stage 4 cancer patient for grass length while he was throwing up from chemo. The woman who called me a liability to the community's investment. The same woman who now wants me to invest in saving her presidency. Karen stood up so fast her chair tipped. This is private. Turn that off. I smiled. Oh, honey, bless your heart. This is the most public thing that's ever happened in Evergreen Pines. She lunged at the laptop, but I simply held up a hand. Karen, before you make this worse, let me show our audience what real community investment looks like. I clicked play on the old board meeting recording I'd synced to the stream. Her voice filled the study. Crisp and condescending. Mr. Wilson is simply not worth the risk to our property values. We cannot keep investing resources in residents who may not be here long term. The comments went nuclear. 58,000 viewers. She's evil. This is why everyone hates HOAs. Play it again. Karen's hands were shaking. Edward, please. I have grandchildren. My husband left me last year, the alimony, the house payments. I'm desperate. If I lose the presidency, the board will audit everything. I could lose my home too. You of all people know what it's like to fight for your life. I leaned in, voice low. I do know. I fought alone while you circled my block like a shark smelling blood. I paid every fine you threw at me while I lost 40 pounds and looked like a skeleton. And you know what kept me alive? Remembering the exact tone you used when you said I wasn't worth the investment. I stood up and walked around the desk. You came here today because the Forbes article told you I'm worth $50 million. You didn't come because you suddenly grew a conscience. You came because you need my money to save your little empire of beige paint and 3-inch grass. 62,000 viewers. The chat was a wall of fire emojis, and get her. Karen tried one last Hail Mary. Edward, think of the neighborhood. Think of all the good we've done together. I can make it right. I'll personally apologize at the next meeting. I'll waive every past fine on record. Just help me. Invest in us the way we should have invested in you. I laughed, a real laugh. The first one that didn't taste like bile in 13 years. Invest in you? Karen, I already did. I built Harmony Guard so no one else would ever have to choose between paying your fines and paying for chemo. Every drone mowing a lawn at midnight. Every sensor keeping paint perfect. Every family that never gets a violation notice. That's my investment back into the community you try to destroy me with. I turned to the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just watched 13 years of HOA tyranny exposed in real time. Karen Whitaker called a dying man worthless. Today that dying man is worth $50 million, and she's begging for scraps. She was crying now. Real tears or the best performance of her life. I didn't care. Edward, please turn it off. This will ruin me. Good, I said quietly. Because the Edward Wilson you abandoned in 2011, he died in that hospital bed. The man standing here now doesn't do business with people who calculate human life in property value dollars. I pressed the button on my desk. Captain Moore, my head of security, stepped in silently. Mom, I'll escort you to your vehicle. Karen looked at me one last time, mascara running, clutching the binder of her own crimes like a life raft. You'll regret this. The whole neighborhood will turn against you. I smiled at the camera. The neighborhood already has. Karen, they're watching right now. 71,000 viewers. Captain Moore guided her out with professional courtesy while I stayed in front of the lens. The comments were pouring in so fast the screen was a blur of justice and outrage. People sharing their own HOA horror stories. Others tagging friends who lived in Evergreen Pines. A few even posting screenshots of Karen's golf carts still parked outside. I leaned in. For everyone watching who's ever been fined for the wrong shade of mulch, or had their Christmas lights measured, or been told their sick kid's wheelchair ramp was an eyesore, this one's for you. Build your empire. Document everything. And never let a clipboard Karen convince you that you're not worth the investment. I glanced at the live count, 84,000. The stream had gone viral inside HOA Facebook groups and Reddit threads faster than Karen could delete her own tweets. Outside, I heard her golf cart start up and peel away. But the real show wasn't over. Within an hour, the neighborhood group chat exploded. Residents who'd stayed silent for years suddenly found their voices. I always knew she was like that. My mom got fined $1,200 while on hospice. Let's recall her tomorrow. By morning, the recall petition had 300 signatures. More than enough. Karen tried damage control. She posted a tearful video on the HOA page claiming I'd ambushed her and taken words out of context. The comments beneath it were brutal. Someone even uploaded the full 13-year archive I'd leaked in a Google Drive link. 2 days later, the board held an emergency meeting. I didn't attend. I didn't have to. Harmony Guard's legal team sat in my study, feeding me the live audio. Karen showed up looking like she'd aged 10 years overnight. She tried the same honey voice. We all make mistakes when we're protecting the community. The vote was unanimous. Karen Whitaker was removed as president effective immediately. The new board voted to install Harmony Guard across the entire neighborhood at no cost to residents. My quiet gift. But the sweetest part came that afternoon. My doorbell rang again. This time, it was the widow from 2 doors down, the one Karen had fined while she grieved her husband. She stood on my porch holding a plate of homemade cookies. I just wanted to say thank you. For all of us. Behind her, neighbors were walking up the street. Some waving. Some just nodding like they were finally waking up from a long beige nightmare. I took the cookies and smiled. Tell everyone the grass can grow however the hell it wants now. She laughed. The first real laugh I'd heard on Maple Lane in years. That night, I sat on my deck, overlooking the Pacific. The same deck where I used to watch Karen's golf cart circle like a shark. The ocean was calm. My phone buzzed with one last notification. The county recorder's office had just filed the paperwork removing every lien Karen had ever placed on my house. 13 years of blood money. Erased. I raised a glass to the empty chair across from me. This one's for you. Karen, thanks for the motivation. The empire I built wasn't just about money. It was about proving that no one, not a clipboard dictator, not a neighborhood full of cowards, gets to decide your worth. Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you community. And real community doesn't measure you in inches of grass. I turned off the porch light, the one my robots kept perfectly timed anyway, and went inside. For the first time in 13 years, Evergreen Pines felt like home. The next morning, the local news vans were parked at the entrance to Evergreen Pines. Reporters wanted the HOA Karen takedown story. I gave one short interview from my driveway. Harmony Guard drone hovering politely beside me mowing the lawn at 3 a.m. Like clockwork. 13 years ago, Karen Whitaker decided I wasn't worth the community's investment. I told the camera. Today, the community decided she wasn't worth the presidency. That's the only math that ever mattered. The clip went national. By noon, HOA Karen Meltdown was trending. People from HOAs across the country were posting their own violation stacks and tagging their boards. One retired judge in Florida even started a class action template for residents to sue abusive associations. Inside Evergreen Pines, the change was immediate. The new board repealed half the petty rules in a single vote. Flags could fly anytime. Trash cans could stay out an extra hour. Medical equipment? No longer an eyesore, it was human. Neighbors started waving again. The widow 2 doors down planted wildflowers in her front yard, bright purple things that would have sent old Karen into cardiac arrest. She smiled at me every morning now. Karen herself disappeared for a while. Rumors said she moved to a condo downtown where there were no HOAs and no one to measure her grass. I didn't chase the rumor. I didn't need to. The last time I saw her was in the rearview mirror of my Tesla as I drove past her old golf cart parked for sale on Craigslist, listed by a motivated seller. I kept the live stream recording archived. Sometimes, late at night, when a new resident asks how I built Harmony Guard, I play the clip of Karen's face when she realized the worthless investment had become the landlord. Their eyes always go wide. Then they laugh, that same dark, Satisfied laugh I've carried for 13 years. Because here's the truth, no HOA handbook will ever print. The people who spend their lives enforcing 3-inch grass and approve beige are terrified of anyone who refuses to stay small. They calculate your worth in dollars and centimeters while you're fighting for your life. And when you survive, when you come back richer and stronger and completely unbothered by their tape measures, they come crawling with their fake smiles and their community investment speeches. I built an empire so no one else would ever have to choose between paying rent to Karen Whitaker and paying for their next chemo round. Every drone that mows at midnight, every sensor that keeps a widow's house perfect without her lifting a finger, that's payback with interest. So if you're watching this and your HOA president just dropped a violation notice on your doorstep while you're sick, broke, or grieving, document everything. Record every meeting. Design your escape in the dark. Then build something so big they can never touch you again. Because the day they call you a worthless investment is the day you start printing your own currency. I closed the laptop, walked out onto the deck, and looked over the neighborhood that once tried to bury me. The lawns were still perfect, but now they were perfect on our terms. The flags flew freely. The people waved. And somewhere in a downtown condo, Karen Whitaker was probably measuring her tiny balcony with a tape measure, wondering how the man she tried to erase became the one who rewrote every rule. Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you community. And spite? Spite makes you unstoppable.